Everyone has their own way of preparing for Doomsday. Some people would rather not think about it while the world burns down around them. Others have a spot reserved in one of the most luxurious Doomsday bunkers in the world. And today, I'll be breaking down the most insane ways people are preparing. Starting with the one that's so stupid, it might be genius. Pre-collapse LASIK eye surgery. Reddit co-founder Steve Huffman got LASIK surgery specifically to improve his survival odds during the apocalypse. The reasoning is that in a post-apocalyptic scenario, you can't get replacement glasses or contact lenses, so you better fix your eyes now while civilization still exists. Huffman literally said he got the surgery to improve his odds in the aftermath of disasters. Because apparently the biggest threat after nuclear war isn't radiation or starvation, it's nearsightedness. But here's what these genius preppers aren't considering. LASIK has complications that might be worse than wearing glasses during Doomsday. Dry eyes that last months or permanently. Good luck finding eye drops after society collapses. Night vision problems with glare and halos make you basically blind in the dark, which is definitely not what you want during apocalypse scenarios. The corneal flap created during surgery can dislocate years later from trauma. One good hit to the face during your apocalypse adventures, and you're worse off than if you'd kept the glasses. Some people need glasses again anyway after overcorrection, undercorrection, or developing astigmatism. Plus, there's a long-term infection risk, which becomes fatal when antibiotics don't exist. Humans survived for millennia with bad vision by, helping each other and working together. Steve, if society collapses, your vision will be the least of your problems. Silicon Valley elite's New Zealand bolt holes. Tech billionaires are buying up New Zealand, like it's virtual real estate in the metaverse. Except these properties cost $8 million and come with bunkers buried 11 feet underground. Because when you've disrupted everything else, why not disrupt the apocalypse survival game too? Peter Thiel, PayPal co-founder and professional contrarian, built a panic room into his Queenstown property. Not a normal panic room, we're talking full Doomsday specifications. Other Silicon Valley entrepreneurs have installed 7 bunkers through Rising S Company in just 2 years. These aren't modest shelters either. The most expensive models feature complete self-sufficiency systems designed for extended isolation from global catastrophes. Robert Vicino is building a 300-person facility at $35,000 per head, creating an exclusive apocalypse country club for tech survivors. The installations typically include private runways because commercial aviation will definitely survive the apocalypse, remote farmland locations they've never farmed, and armored defensive systems to fight off the hungry masses who didn't have $8 million to spare. New Zealand makes sense if you don't think about it too hard. It's remote, politically stable, has natural resources, and the locals are friendly, part for now. But what people haven't considered is that New Zealand is a sovereign nation with its own people who might not appreciate foreign billionaires hoarding resources during a crisis. When society collapses, property rights become suggestions, and that deed to your bunker won't mean much to desperate locals who actually know the land. Plus, you're assuming you can get to New Zealand when disaster strikes. Your private jet needs fuel, pilots, and a place to land. By the time you realize you need to flee, borders will be closed, and your escape route will be fantasy. Holidaying in La Claustre Swiss Mountain Fortress Hotel. Some preppers are taking apocalypse vacations at La Claustre, a former Cold War artillery bunker converted into a luxury hotel deep in the Swiss Alps. This decommissioned military installation covers 56 square feet embedded in granite underneath the Gotthard Pass. They've turned weapon storage into 17 hotel rooms, each with its own individual design, which is hotel speak for, we couldn't remove all the concrete so we painted it different colors. Guests enjoy hot and cold water sourced directly from mountain springs, which sounds romantic until you realize it's the same water that's been seeping through radioactive granite for millennia. The mineral water-filled hot tubs in the spa facilities let you soak in the authentic Cold War experience while pretending this is relaxation and not rehearsal for the end times. The marketing genius here is stunning. They're charging premium prices for people to experience the psychological reality of long-term underground living, basically paying to be buried alive with room service. The underground complex includes grand dining areas where you can practice eating canned goods in style, seasonal pools that remind you seasons still exist above ground, and reflection pools for contemplating your life choices that led to vacationing in a bunker. Located halfway between Zurich and Milan, with easy train access, assuming trains survive whatever you're prepping for. This is practice tourism for the paranoid wealthy. They're testing whether they can psychologically handle bunker living while still having the escape hatch of checking out and going home. It's like a trial run for the apocalypse with a continental breakfast. But this is nowhere near the most insane way people are preparing on the list, and they only get crazier from here. Buying a second passport. Citizenship by investment programs have become the ultimate doomsday prep for people who think they can outrun the apocalypse with paperwork. For as little as 100, you too can become a citizen of a Caribbean island you can't locate on a map. Countries like Dominica, St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua and Barbuda, and Vanuatu are basically selling citizenship like it's a luxury handbag. 3 to 6 months and a real estate investment later, you're officially a citizen of somewhere you've never lived and probably can't pronounce correctly. Advanced preppers. And yes, that's what they call themselves. Target these programs for visa-free travel to 140+ countries because apparently when the world ends, border control will still be checking passports. The fastest option is Vanuatu's 30-day expedited processing for an extra 10-0, because patience is for people who don't think the world is ending next month. The delusion here is magnificent. These people think that when their country collapses, they'll calmly drive to the airport with their bug-out bag and secondary passport, board a commercial flight that's somehow still operating, and land in their backup country, where they'll be welcomed with open arms. They're spending millions on the right to flee to other countries that will have the same problems, just with different accents. Your second passport is just an expensive receipt for your paranoia. Svalbard Global Seed Vault. The Svalbard Global Seed Vault is the one actually sensible doomsday prep on this list, which is why individuals aren't allowed anywhere near it. This global agricultural insurance policy stores 397 seed samples in the Arctic permafrost, and unlike personal bunkers, it might actually matter. Located 300 kilometers beyond the Arctic Circle in Norway, the vault maintains constant 18 degrees Celsius temperatures, perfect for seed preservation. The facility safeguards duplicates of essential food crops, tens of thousands of varieties of beans, wheat, rice, and other plants that actually keep humanity fed. Seeds are sealed in custom 3-ply foil packages, placed in boxes, and stored on shelves designed to remain viable for centuries. The thick rock and permafrost ensure samples stay frozen even without power, providing the ultimate backup against whatever idiotic thing humanity does to destroy its food supply. But here's where the preppers lose their minds over this. They see Svalbard and think, that's what I need in my backyard. No, you don't need a personal seed vault. These wannabe genetic preservationists are stockpiling heritage seeds in their basements, convinced they'll restart agriculture after the collapse. They're buying heirloom varieties and storing them incorrectly in humid basements where they'll rot before any apocalypse arrives. They imagine themselves as humanity's agricultural saviors, replanting the earth with their precious seed collection. The reality check these people need is harsh. Svalbard works because it's run by scientists who know what they're doing, in a location specifically chosen for natural preservation, with international cooperation and funding. Vivos Indiana Communal Bunker. The Vivos Indiana bunker promises survival for 80 people at the low price of your sanity and any remaining faith in humanity. It's a Cold War-era shelter converted into what they call a comfortable 4-star hotel, which tells you everything about how delusional these people are. Built to withstand a 20-megaton nuclear blast, this underground complex includes bedroom suites, full-size showers, a theater area, and a lounge. Because when the world ends, you'll definitely want to watch movies with 79 other paranoid preppers who all think they're the main character. The facility includes pet kennels, because Fluffy deserves to survive the apocalypse too, even though pets consume resources and provide no survival value. There's an exercise area to stay fit for the new world, a workshop for repairs, and even a garden area for fresh vegetables that will definitely grow underground without proper light or soil. Everything comes fully stocked: food, medical supplies, toiletries, linens, fuel, ATVs, bicycles, and security devices. Residents only need to bring clothing and personal medications. The communal living aspect is where this becomes a psychological horror show. You're locked underground with 79 other people who were paranoid enough to buy into this, but not rich enough for private bunkers. The group dynamics would be insane within days. Every minor decision becomes a potential conflict when you can't leave, and everyone's terrified. They're strategically located away from nuclear targets, fault lines, and major waterways, but they can't locate away from the real threat: each other. Survival condo, missile, silo apartments. This converted Atlas ICBM missile silo from the 1960s has 9-foot-thick walls of steel-reinforced concrete originally designed to survive nuclear missile launches. Now it houses luxury apartments for millionaire preppers who want to survive the apocalypse without giving up their lifestyle. Residents enjoy amenities including an indoor pool, a rock climbing wall, a private cinema, and exercise facilities ensure you stay fit for a world you'll never see again. The whole thing is protected by 24-hour security monitoring the Kansas farmland above, watching for threats that will never come. 8-ton steel doors guard the entrance, which sounds impressive until you realize it also means 8 tons of steel between you and escape if something goes wrong inside. Each unit comes fully furnished and stocked with supplies, allowing wealthy families to maintain their bougie lifestyle while the peasants die above. The kitchen has granite countertops, because even in the apocalypse, you need somewhere nice to prepare your freeze-dried meals. The psychological disconnect here is staggering. These people paid millions to live in a missile silo, a literal instrument of of mass destruction to protect themselves from the mass destruction they're convinced is coming. Vivo's X-Point Underground City. Vivo's X-Point is attempting to build an entire underground city in South Dakota with 575 bunkers across 18 square miles, creating the world's largest and most delusional survival community. These concrete and steel bunkers were built by the Army Corps of Engineers in 1942 for munitions storage. Designed to withstand 500 zero-pound internal blasts, each semi-subterranean structure measures 80 feet by 26.5 feet with thick earth-covered roofs. The complex features 100 miles of private roads connecting individual family bunkers. There's 24/7 military-trained security monitoring the single access point, watching for threats while ignoring the threat of 5-0 paranoid preppers living in close proximity. Located at 800 feet altitude and 100 miles from nuclear targets, the facility promises safety from external threats while creating massive internal ones. Members purchase individual bunkers and customize them, turning ammunition storage into Pinterest-worthy survival spaces. Poland's sliding wall safe house. In Poland, someone built a house that transforms into a concrete cube at the push of a button. This architectural paranoia appears as a normal house until activated, when massive steel walls slide out of hidden compartments to completely seal the structure. The sliding walls are several inches thick and designed to stop bullets, explosives, and forced entry attempts, or more likely, door-to-door salesmen and Girl Scouts selling cookies. Hydraulic systems deploy these defensive barriers within minutes, transforming family living space into an impenetrable fortress that also becomes an inescapable tomb. Interior systems include independent power generation, water storage, air filtration, and communication equipment, everything you need to slowly go insane in your concrete box. The house maintains a normal residential appearance to avoid attracting attention. Hidden cameras provide 360-degree surveillance while the family huddles inside, watching their neighbors have normal lives. Emergency activation can be triggered from inside or remotely, allowing you to trap yourself even when you're not home, which seems counterproductive. But what do I know about paranoid architecture? The fundamental problem with the safe house is that it solves a problem that doesn't exist while creating new ones. Your house can now accidentally trap you inside if the hydraulics fail. The walls that keep threats out also keep you in, and fires, medical emergencies, or system failures become death sentences. The neighbors definitely know you're the weird fortress family, making you the first target when society actually does collapse. You've spent hundreds of thousands to live in a house that's prepared for warfare in suburban Poland, but this is nowhere near the most insane way people are preparing on the list, and they only get crazier from here. Suburban neighborhood under a Las Vegas house. Beneath a Las Vegas home lies a complete underground suburban neighborhood with fake houses, street lamps, and artificial sky. This underground recreation features a complete suburban street scene, including fake houses with working doors and windows, artificial grass that's somehow more depressing than real grass, and an in-ground swimming pool for swimming laps in denial. The subterranean neighborhood uses advanced lighting to simulate natural sunlight and weather patterns, creating the world's most expensive psychological coping mechanism. Each fake house serves different functions. Bedrooms decorated like it's still 1,975, storage areas for supplies you'll never use, entertainment areas for entertaining nobody, and workshops for building more fake things. The artificial sky uses LED panels displaying moving clouds, sunrise and sunset cycles, and star patterns. The creator invested millions in this elaborate psychological survival strategy, believing that maintaining normalcy would be crucial for long-term mental health. Instead, they created an uncanny valley of suburbia that would make anyone question reality. Living here would be like being trapped in a David Lynch film about suburban America. Every day you wake up in your fake house, walk down your fake street, and sit by your real pool pretending everything is normal while the actual world exists above you. At least you might survive the apocalypse though, stockpiling honeybees as currency. New England prepper Kathy Harrison is banking on bees becoming the new Bitcoin after society collapses, maintaining dozens of hives as her apocalyptic investment portfolio. Her operation produces hundreds of pounds of honey annually, along with beeswax for candles, waterproofing, and medical applications that she's convinced will be more valuable than gold when traditional currency collapses. She maintains detailed knowledge of bee breeding, hive management, and honey processing techniques, turning herself into the Federal Reserve of bee-based economics. She's stockpiled beekeeping equipment, protective gear, and spare hive components, preparing to be the JP Morgan of honey. The extensive flower gardens and fruit trees ensure adequate bee nutrition, creating a sustainable ecosystem that exists primarily in her imagination, where she's the queen bee of the new economy. The problem with bees as currency is that bees don't care about your economic theories. Colony collapse collapse disorder could wipe out your entire bank account overnight. Your neighbors won't trade ammunition for honey when they're starving, they'll just take your honey and probably your bees too. She's imagining herself as the central banker of the new world, controlling the honey supply and therefore the economy. In reality, she's just someone with a lot of bees who'll be the first person raided when sugar becomes scarce. AU 350, Zero Mountain Redoubt. Australian prepper Robert Bast built his Fortress 1, 500 feet high in the mountains, spending 350, Zero to create what he calls an impregnable survival retreat that's mostly just impregnated with paranoia. The compound features reinforced concrete construction that could withstand attacks that aren't coming, solar power systems that break constantly, rainwater collection for water that tastes like bird droppings, and extensive food storage facilities filled with stuff his family won't eat unless actually starving. Bast conducts regular bug-out drills with his entire family, traumatizing his children with practice evacuations from their suburban home to the mountain hideaway. These drills involve pre-positioned supplies and escape routes, turning family outings into military operations that definitely don't cause psychological damage to developing minds. The redoubt includes workshops for manufacturing tools and weapons he doesn't know how to make, medical facilities for procedures he can't perform, and communication equipment for monitoring global events that won't affect his mount. Multiple defensive positions overlook approach routes that no one will ever use because no one cares about his mountain bunker. Hidden entrances and tunnels provide security against hostile survivors who exist mainly in his imagination and prepper forums. The family maintains detailed inventories of ammunition for wars they won't fight, preserved foods they hope to never eat, seeds for gardens they can't grow at altitude, and technical manuals for rebuilding a technology they barely understand now. The real tragedy is the family dynamics. His kids are being raised in constant fear, practicing for disasters instead of living childhood. His spouse either fully bought in and is equally paranoid, or secretly resents every dollar spent on the mountain instead of college funds. Regular drills teach the family that danger is imminent, normalizing fear and paranoia. The mountain fortress isn't protecting his family, it's isolating them from normal life and creating the very dysfunction he claims to be protecting against. That 350, Zero could have bought education, experiences, and opportunities. Instead, it bought a concrete monument to one man's fears on a mountain no one else wants. 13-foot steel, Atlantis balls. Someone looked at traditional bunker design and thought, you know what would be better? A giant yellow ball. Thus were born the Atlantis survival spheres, 13-foot steel balls that look like escape pods from a 1970s sci-fi movie that was canceled after one season. These bright yellow spheres are designed to protect occupants from multiple disaster scenarios through the revolutionary strategy of being round. They can supposedly roll with earthquakes, which sounds great until you realize you're inside tumbling like clothes in a dryer. They float during floods, assuming you don't mind bobbing around the ocean in a giant yellow fishing buoy that screams, humans inside. They can absorb shockwaves from distant nuclear explosions, though if nukes are falling, your steel ball is just a more expensive coffin. The interior features basic life support systems that fail immediately, emergency supplies for about 3 days, and minimal seating for 4 people who will definitely not murder each other in a tiny steel sphere. The geometric shape that's supposed to be superior actually makes everything worse. You can't stack anything properly in a sphere. The floor is curved, so you can't stand or sleep comfortably. Every movement makes the ball want to roll. Some versions include periscopes for outside observation, so you can watch the world end while trapped in your yellow marble. Manual ventilation systems require constant operation, or you suffocate in your own CO2. Buyers spend tens of thousands on these geometric survival pods, convinced that being ball-shaped is the key advantage that will save them. The practical problems are endless. Where do you store a 13-foot sphere? How do you transport it to safety when it weighs tons? If it's buried as a stationary shelter, how do you dig it up when you need it? If it's mobile, how do you control where it rolls? You're basically buying a very expensive hamster ball for humans, except hamsters are smart enough to want out. The sphere might survive various disasters, but the humans inside won't survive being in the sphere. Private 65-foot steel Noah's Ark. Chinese businessman Liu Qiyuan spent 160 building a massive steel boat in his backyard because he's convinced biblical floods are coming, despite living in inland China, where biblical floods would require literally biblical intervention. This isn't just a boat, it's a 65-foot steel monument to one man's very specific apocalypse fantasy. Liu welded the entire structure himself over several years, creating sealed storage areas for months of food that will spoil, fresh water tanks that will grow algae, and navigation equipment for navigating floodwaters that would have to be impossibly deep to reach his landlocked location. The reinforced hull can supposedly withstand tsunamis, which is great, except tsunamis don't reach inland China unless the entire continent is underwater, at which point you have bigger problems than boat ownership. The boat includes life rafts, because apparently the 65-foot steel boat isn't enough boat. There's fishing equipment for catching fish in floodwaters that will be full of corpses, debris, and disease. Tools for ocean survival sit ready despite the ocean being hundreds of miles away. Lou remains convinced his floating fortress will save his family when rising sea levels trigger global flooding, ignoring that sea level rise is measured in millimeters per year, not sudden biblical deluges. His neighbors think he's insane, which is the only accurate assessment in this entire scenario. The image of this massive steel boat sitting in someone's backyard, slowly rusting while waiting for floods that aren't coming, is the perfect metaphor for prepper culture. Lou spent years of his life and a fortune building a solution to an imaginary problem while real problems went unaddressed. His family has to live with a giant boat in their yard, a daily reminder of Dad's apocalyptic obsessions. The boat will never float, but the debt from building it certainly will. Arc 2 School Bus Labyrinth. Bruce Beach buried 42 school buses underground in rural Ontario and called it a survival shelter, creating what might be the worst field trip destination in human history. This bizarre underground maze of welded-together buses supposedly can house 500 people, which is like saying a phone booth can house 20 people if they don't mind dying. The yellow buses maintain their original seating in some areas because nothing says survival like trying to sleep on a school bus seat designed to be uncomfortable for 8-year-olds. Other buses have been gutted and converted into functional spaces, sleeping quarters where you can't stand up, storage areas that smell like diesel and mildew, meeting spaces for planning your descent into madness, and workshops for building things you'll never need. Beach spent decades constructing access tunnels that flood regularly, ventilation systems that barely work, and reinforcing structures that are still just buses buried in dirt. The labyrinthine design supposedly confuses potential intruders, but mainly confuses the inhabitants trying to find a bathroom at 3 a.m. Multiple escape routes sound good until you realize they're all through narrow bus doors that 500 panicking people are trying to use simultaneously. The compound includes stockpiles of expired food, medical supplies from the 1980s, and tools for rebuilding civilization that are rusting in the humid underground environment. The delusion required to think 500 people could survive in buried school buses is staggering. The ventilation alone would fail within days, with that many people breathing. The sanitation would be apocalyptic before any actual apocalypse. The psychological horror of being trapped underground in school buses with 499 other people would cause violence within hours. The buses will eventually rust through, the tunnels will collapse, and the whole thing will become an archaeological curiosity for future generations, wondering what the hell people were thinking. Bruce Beach created an underground school bus cemetery and convinced himself it was survival preparation. The Oppidum Luxury Bunker, the crown jewel of Doomsday insanity. The Oppidum in Czech Republic, a 323 0-square-foot underground fortress that costs more than some countries' GDP and provides less actual security than a decent therapist. Built into a hillside near Prague, this complex includes everything you never needed in a bunker: a full spa with massage rooms for when you need to relax after the nuclear holocaust, saunas for sweating out radiation, that's not how radiation works, an indoor swimming pool for doing laps while humanity burns above, and a private cinema with plush seating for watching the extensive film collection you definitely remembered to bring while fleeing the apocalypse. The climate-controlled art storage vaults protect priceless collections that will be worthless when money doesn't exist. Wine cellars maintain perfect temperature for vintages you'll drink alone in your concrete tomb. The bunker can house dozens of ultra-wealthy families who paid millions for the privilege of being trapped underground together. Nothing could go wrong with locking dozens of millionaire families in a confined space while the world ends. These people who can't agree on HOA rules are definitely going to cooperate harmoniously when resources get scarce. The power generation systems require maintenance by people who will be dead. The water purification needs chemicals that won't exist. The air filtration requires filters that can't be manufactured after society collapses. This is what peak prepper looks like: spending generational wealth on an underground resort for an apocalypse that isn't coming while actual problems like climate change, inequality, and healthcare get ignored. These ultra-wealthy preppers aren't preparing for disaster, they're creating one by hoarding resources that could actually help society. The Oppidum isn't a survival strategy, it's a monument to the delusion that you can buy your way out of being human. When the apocalypse doesn't come, it's just the world's most expensive basement. When it does, it's the world's most expensive tomb with better amenities. The greatest irony is that all these elaborate preparations, from luxury bunkers to buried school buses, from steel spheres to fake underground suburbs, are solutions to imaginary problems while real disasters happen daily. If you enjoyed this video and want to see the most dangerous places in an apocalypse that you should never go, click the video on the screen now.